kind of like I think people like Michael J as a kind of a unique kind of character.
And I have
You just see how games and possessions are more intense, how they mean more.
I'm not putting him on.
I think the U.S. is going to obviously win.
Much like the brutal, tedious decisions that Zach Lowe must make when deciding which well-deserving guard from his long list must be left off his hypothetical Western Conference All-Star team, we too must make some tough choices today. There are some things that are on the docket that we will not talk about today. Is it Hunter Biden's ex-girlfriend appearing on Red Scare that gets cut? Is it the drones in New Jersey? Or is it going to be Jimmy Butler's weird agent who only reps Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, and a bunch of G League guys? Or is it going to be the Palantir ad that played at the Army-Navy game? Thankfully, to help make these tough editorial decisions, we have myself, Patrick Redford, staff writer at Defector, and Mr. Ock Hollywood himself, Ock Sportello. How are you guys?
What's up, guys? I was going to say, I was curious to see what your wrap-up was going to catch on the hot button topics, and you missed my two personal favorites, which are the as of today viral New York City party tweet of the public defender versus Palantir Exxon interns, and then, of course, the already seminal R. Bill Simmons comment about Adam losing kind of the heart of Central America. So yeah, I'm excited to see what we go.
Yeah, there's a few more. Yeah,
we had to keep room for Russillo, Meghan Markle, 75-minute block at the start. So I mean, in the business, you have to make your priorities, and that's just how it goes.
No, not everybody can go 3 hours like Rogan. We have like we've got an hour, and we got to hit our things. And the first thing that we want to talk about is this really excellent article that Patrick, that you wrote last weekend. I want to talk about your process, but and of course the article itself. One of the funny parts about the process you were telling me was you were just like, because you were right. We were talking when you were in the middle of it, and it was like you were exercising some demons. Like you were like, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to sleep or eat until I finish this piece.
Yeah, it was like the evil counterpart of like divine inspiration. Like, there was like a fairly obvious fake tweet going around, I don't know, a week and a half ago, whenever this was, that was like someone joking about losing their life savings and the Haley Welch meme coin rug pull. And we found out that some version of this was actually real. And then within 48 hours, I was just like struck by this pure thought of like this meme coin rug pull thing is actually connected to much larger like political, economic, and like technological forces. And that was like a very unpleasant, like fully formed thought to have. So I had to spend about 48 hours just like writing this out to just get this out of my brain. And I think people liked it. And I'm soon going to have to be in the position to explain on a national cable news program this using like a lot of words that are not in the Bible. So not looking forward to that one, but I think I'll do a good job.
I mean, I do have to say one of the best parts of the piece is just how blunt and to the point you are by way of getting into it. And I feel so just badly for you that you have to go on national television where you're not afforded those niceties, and you really do have to get into things like who is Haley Hawk Tua Welch.
I know. I'm not like a Gen Z culture expert. That's Harry. You can't see, but he has the bussin', he has the broccoli haircut. He's saying for real after all of his texts. But
type shit, yeah.
Like I don't know how you are supposed to explain this like normally to a person and like get to the, I think, interesting parts of the story if they already don't know who she is. Like there's a lot of like obscurant layers that like I think present as like fairly deep fried internet bullshit to normal people here.
I was even experiencing that. So, okay, what we're talking about is this. You wrote this piece called the Hawk Tua meme coin rug pull is the apotheosis of bad culture. And what that essentially is talking about this rug pull that happened representing this kind of like larger uncanny moment in media and in perhaps the interaction of media and capital and media and like attention economy, and it's a lot of different things. And in going through the rug pull stuff, I went back in the old Discord of the team that launched this meme coin, and just to your point of like these layers and layers of meaning, it's impenetrable. It's impossible to like even understand what a Discord is talking about when you jump in the middle. Like you almost need to like go back to when the Discord was started and read like chronologically so you can understand who's joking, whose shit posts are what are actually what they mean, whose shit posts are like stupid, whose words hold no meaning, you know, all of this stuff. So it makes for like you really got to do your research.
Yeah, kind of to an unfortunate degree. And like, I think what is sort of an interesting thing here is that we are like 3 years after like the first sort of like meme coin rug pull type moves, to the point that like anyone who is buying like a bespoke cryptocurrency meant to fund some Web3 style project in like Q4 2024, like has to know that this is a scam and that they're just basically playing crypto musical chairs. And I think that's like an interesting thing to do this late in the game.
There's something that's kind of like, I've been like kind of sitting with and chewing on the joke about, you know, having to explain the Hawk Tua thing to a national TV audience and not knowing where to start. Because like at the same time, I don't know. I'm wary of like getting to a field, but like Hawk Tua is this obviously like brain rot meme as I encounter it every day. And also is one of those things that like weirdly broke into the real world before I saw it on my phone. Like I remember hearing about it from just like my two exceedingly normal friends who like, they look at Instagram to like see, I guess exactly what I do, like look at basketball highlights, but like they're not insane about it. Like they're not like pushing these weird agendas. And I remember them telling me like, oh, have you seen this at a bar? And obviously I had not. And then I picked my head up 2 days later and apparently this internet exists, and there are these like seminal pieces written about it. All that is to say, I think something that's really interesting about this Hawk Tua bullshit that you kind of get at in the piece is the way in which all of this is clearly like everyone should come in and expect the rug pull, and it feels like we are just entering this space of like more and more ephemeral and immediate online like spikes to popularity followed by some rug pull, whatever it looks like. But what's interesting about this is she did kind of break through to people who aren't just so brain rotted. And as best I can tell, the only people who actually have any reason to feel bad about losing money are people who, if this type of person exists, are someone who actually are a fan of Hawk Tua, who get talked into buying a Solana minted coin or whatever the fuck.
Hawk, to your point of there is these two kinds of being online as I see it, as like an online as this aesthetic of almost like a fetishizing of like freaks on the internet, and that there's that specific type, and that is kind of the online. I think that like media as a whole, or sort of like media Twitter or this sort of navel-gazing media apparatus thinks of as online. But then there's this other populist online of like random YouTube comedy specials that have 7 million views that are like that turn into Netflix specials and all of these things. Like those are online people. Those are people influenced by algorithms. But it's kind of what is the genius of the Zinternet article of like it's this whole other online that actually makes this other kind of freak online corner seem like a speakeasy, like a tiny little bar compared to, the whole other thing. The last thing I'll say about the rug pull, a funny part of like the people who seemed like were the maddest about the Hawk Tua rug pull were again, I don't know who these people are, but the people who believe in indoctrinating the world to crypto and are like, this is an opportunity to bring Web 2 people into Web 3, and like, God damn it, we scammed them again. Like, how do we get the normies to like Web 3 whenever time we get them a fun idea about the community of crypto, we bot snipe them and they lose all their money instantly. like those are the people who are like can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, they need to chase the bag. Like they need to understand basically like this thing that I think did an okay job trying to define, but is like a sort of nebulous, slippery thing. I think really it's like the idea of like what I called bag culture is motivated, and I'm curious to see your guys' observations on this. Like this thing that I've noticed over the past 4 or 5 years of being online, where like any concept of the idea of like selling out or like compromising one's online integrity in the name of like making money, that's like so gauche and out of the meta. And like I think anyone, like any Zoomer or like online native sort of understands like the point of posting is to get attention, and the point of getting attention is to convert that attention into money. And I think as people come up, like there are basically fewer layers now between like audience, poster, and bag, because like advertisers understand that this is like this very clean, efficient mechanism to like get your product in front of people. And I think also as creators, it's like, if it's 2012, it's hard for you to imagine like getting on television or like writing a viral essay in XO Jane and then having them sell like, I don't know, Best Buy gift cards against that, where it's like, you could just post a TikTok, skateboarding down the street with ocean spray cranberry juice like that guy a few years ago, and then all of a sudden like the product is at your doorstep. And I think like there's that creative side to it, but then, and this is where it's hard to like feel scientific about this, is like there's also the audience being like, yes, go chase the bag. Like if someone you like gets a bigger sponsor or gets money, the response is not like, oh, you've compromised to, you know, sell Nordstrom's. It's like, good job. Like that is a signifier, absent like legacy media prestige. That is a signifier of like that you've made it, that like you are in a certain tier. And I think it's that attitude that I was like really trying to like get at here.
Well, so I have thought about that a lot as well. And I have kind of one response to that, and then also one like harebrained thing to even tangentially tie this to basketball in the NBA, because I do think there actually is like a common thread. Something I have observed that I think is like directly related to the lack of any stigma of selling out, or even any concept of selling out, right? Like the idea that there's some integrity that you are sacrificing by chasing money on the internet, is just how different the internet looks 10 years ago versus now. And you kind of wrote about it in the piece, Patrick, where you're like basically talking about the fact that like obviously at its core, the social internet as we know it has been functionally this fancy advertising machine. And any dreams about it being this like utopian connector are kind of pie in the sky. But the internet that at least I remember cutting my teeth on was one in which there existed a world outside of it that was not yet dependent upon it and deeply intimidated by the internet, but also had rewards that it could give you by virtue of being good at the internet. Like there was still this idea that you could post yourself into a writing job on Fallon or a book deal, or you could blog your way into being an editor. And I think a lot of people who kind of are the old guard of the internet right now are people who successfully did that, right? You write a viral blog post and then you are the editor at a prestige magazine and you've kind of got it made as the sea begins to rise. Whereas now there is no that, right? There is no, and so I think when you see people applauding their favorite creator getting the bag, I think part of what we have here is our old internet that was at least theoretically reward based for performance also operated from this like scarcity mindset of, if everyone you like and post with wants to, you know, write for the New York Times and one person gets the job, it's a little bittersweet because that job isn't there for you anymore. Versus now, everything is a scam, everything's fake. The number can and will keep going up until the rug gets pulled out. And so there is this kind of like collaborative spirit of scamming everyone around you. That could be ridiculous. But where I see it relating into NBA and the basketball internet is I feel like these exact modes of participation on the internet have completely mirrored what we see with basketball internet. Where the basketball internet from, I don't know, 10 years ago, let's say, there still was this logical path where if you were the star on the basketball internet, you make the right pick on draft Twitter, or you video break down your way into someone noticing you, there were real jobs you could get from that. You could become a full-time content creator. You could find yourself in a front office. Like, there really was a path from sicko to person with healthcare. And now, not only is that path more or less obliterated, but the way to monetize existing on the internet is basically just clip farming and engagement baiting. And number one way to a check that most of these people visualize is getting the blue check on Twitter and then posting the most outrageous bait you could ever see. And so it like has discursively changed how people act too, because of the whole, I don't know, the bag apparatus has completely shifted.
I totally agree. This sort of, I mean, one of the perfect ways, and I think we're going to eventually do a longer episode about this, but one of the perfect examples of this is the trajectory of House of Highlights. Like, if you think of House of Highlights as like this 2013 Instagram page run by a guy who people knew as Omar House of Highlights, who then, by the way, got a great legacy media job off of the strength of posting, that has then become a content farm for like babies. You know, like it's like now most of what I see there is like Kai Cenat gritties after getting a girlfriend. Like, it's like fucking crazy. And you know, there's this weird thing of how much is that the meta because that's the meta, or how much is that the meta because like a bunch of like idiots are forcing it to be the meta.
Yeah, and I hesitate to describe too much directionality in either way to this, but I think it is worth noting and interesting to point out that like the posting meta and the sort of like ruthless min-maxing that we see also like broadly mirrors like the larger order evolutions of these platforms from like the VC era, where it's like growth for growth's sake, and this like kind of glorious inefficiency is like what made a lot of these platforms good. Like, I mean, I'm surely you remember that this website is free Twitter era, and just this idea that like Twitter doesn't really make sense as like a money-making venture. Like, sure, there are ads, but it's like not really like the most efficient delivery mechanism in a way that like TikTok clearly is. And it's like, I don't think it's totally a coincidence that like that tendency has disappeared at the same time that Facebook is like, okay, we got to make money. And that like Uber is deciding to like, okay, we actually have to be profitable now, so shit costs 4 times more. Or like Musk taking over Twitter in a deal he tried to sue to get out of, and then like realizing I can just turn this into like the biggest race to the bottom bullshit ever. And like, I'd like have a hard time saying exactly that like the posting mirrors that, but I do think they are happening at the same time.
Zero interest posting. We need a zero interest posting environment. Was Drill only a product of a zero interest posting environment? Honestly, fucking problem.
I mean, yeah. I think so.
Objectively, yeah.
Okay, the last thing I want to hit on this, because there's a ton of again, I encourage everybody to check the piece out. Actually, I have 2 things. First, I want to ask you, Patrick, was there any kind of interesting, because a lot of people saw it. I saw a lot of people like tweeting about it. I saw the Defector comment section going crazy. Was there any interesting kind of responses you got that were like, oh, I hadn't thought about this, or oh, this is a far-reaching angle?
That's a good question. Like, there is one point that like I did get some pushback on, and it's like they correctly identified that is like kind of the linchpin of the whole argument, is this idea that like young people have a harder and worse life now than like we did 10 years ago. And it's like kind of some Bidenomics dead enders being like, well, jobs are up, so like, what are you talking about? But I think having to establish like that it's like harder to be an 18-year-old now facing like collapsing public services, like totally inaccessible college education, like can't buy a house, the planet's dying. It's like kind of hard to make that case to someone who doesn't fundamentally want to accept like decline. And like the larger order, like political economic argument at play here is like, this is a story about like, you know, a economy built on consumption that faces resource scarcity for whatever reason you want to ascribe it to. I think we could agree on that. And it's like, what happens when the bleeding edge of that plays out when it's like technologified in this particular way? And so like thinking about that pushback, I think has been interesting because like, even if I don't agree with them, like they've correctly identified that like, that is what the argument is really about. And saying that, it just feels crazy that like, I could like say like, you know, the Ronald Reagan era contraction of public services, and then 2 sentences later say Hawk Tua meme coin rug pull. But honestly, I do think that's like the line that's like worth drawing here.
Well, I actually wanted to, because a cousin of this, the meme coin stuff, is a kind of conversation about clout, and I think Hawk, you were right to bring up the posting your way into an editor job, like, because one of the things, just like in my own career, something I think about is how, like, if your goal is to kind of like internet adjacent, taste adjacent, have good points on things your way into a media job, like all the people who did that 10 years ago are just like 10 years older than me and still doing it. Like those guys aren't dying anytime soon. And they are in the middle of their careers, and I wish them all the best or whatever. But like the point, I was thinking about this in terms of, I saw this Substack note. The only thing I'm really posting on these days is by this guy named Philip Tralin, who said, "I may be wrong, but isn't there an extremely fixed pattern here?" Referencing, I think, people like going upstate or something. But the best writers I can think of, Sam Chris, Sam Rivera, Tao Lin, whatever, we'll say the best writers I can hear of, but the point still stands, were obsessively active on social media for about 10 years from the age of, say, 15 to 25. It's precisely the, quote, manic, self-annihilating internet phase, which produces the cultural capital, which they could then, quote, cash in at Random House Durham University at, what word is this? Hypostasized, self-replicating, and most importantly, clickless, either literally without clicks or consisting of fewer versions of the same frame, by which I mean if you, quote, drop off the internet without already accruing enough congealed internet capital, you will just disappear. It's not a bad thing. And that's a lot of words. But the point I think is true, which is that if the current smartest and savviest way to pop off internet 5 seconds of fame is to rug pull some shit, 10 years ago it was to like get enough clout to where you could be, your name had high enough SEO score where you could drop off and then come back at your leisure. Like it's the ability to leave the rat race temporarily. Like that's the appeal of 10 years ago internet fame, whereas the current appeal is maybe more direct and less ephemeral. I don't know. It's I don't know. But what do you think about that kind of word salad quote?
I mean, I do think like something that makes me think a lot of kind of, I agree with everything you're saying, but like I do think something we're also seeing is just like how much shorter everyone's memory gets and kind of just like the death of lore. Because like I don't think we're in an environment right now that like is conducive to lore. Because what you're talking about is, I completely agree. Right now you pop off, all of a sudden you have a podcast about, you know, spitting on that thing, and then you do the rug pull. Versus like there are without naming names, certain very well listened to podcasts that may or may not be shifting American culture that do have their seeds in a viral woman on the street interview that perhaps had they happened today would have some sort of girl in Sailor Moon fit coin that gets rug pulled. And like I think it's just such a perfect example of like where we were and where we are. And something I want to tie that into what these kind of like amalgamated commenters were saying to you, Patrick, which is like whether or not you buy the argument that life is worse for 18-year-olds now, which obviously it is, but obviously there are also people who are invested in not thinking that. I think the main mode of difference is if you are 28 to 38, there is a possibility that you didn't spend your entire life thinking everything was cooked, right? Like there is one parallel we can do between, or one difference we can do between internet now and internet then is at least this belief in whether it's meritocracy or whether you want to say something less strong than that and just say the idea that there are career paths to be had, right? Like there are steps one takes to a certain goal, and those steps are in some meaningful way logically following from another. Versus now, that myth has kind of completely evaporated. And it is all about bag chasing. And so I do think, yeah, like, congealed internet clout, maybe the difference now is it just burns quicker, right? Mm-hmm. And it actually doesn't accrue interest over time. Like, you do need to spend your clout as soon as you have it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's it.
You don't have time to do heroin at the movie theater.
That's another one of the fundamental premises of this, of like why Haley Welch is like an interesting person worth tracking, and why I like wanted to be very clear that this is like not a critique of her work as like a comedian or public figure, is that like she basically had this like perfect supernova of fame, and it's like the way she chose to capitalize on it will like show you what the meta is now, basically.
Right.
And like one of those people who like posted their way into a media job is like me. Like I had that arc. And so the actual critique that I wanted that I wouldn't really have any rebuttal for is like, this is like bitter millennial whining at Zoomer shit that like it's different now and that your world is gone, which is like, yeah, that's true.
Right.
Fair enough.
Like you got lucky enough to get scooped up by Vice or whatever. You didn't need to crowdsource a coin.
Yeah. Like if like 10 years younger, Patrick might be like on some crazy Discord saying some crazy stuff, like, and it's like the Are You Winning son with like whatever Solana is on the screen. Clearly, I don't know enough about this shit.
I think that is ultimately the difference, though, between the internet I grew up on, the internet now, is son might be winning. You know, that's the thing is, dad might poke his head in, and his son with his little broccoli hair and his vape that, like, I don't know, turns you nonverbal and makes you blind in 10 years, like, actually has made more money in 3 days than his father made over, like, a lifetime of toil. And so that is, I don't know, the flip side of me being irate about all the scam shit is knowing that I'm not literate enough in all of this to ever be the scammer rather than the scammed. There's definitely a part of at least my approach to this that is a bit resentful.
Well, so I have two things about this Discord that I'll, because after reading the article to prep for the show, I went into the Discord of the extremely confusing, as all of this is, company that went public, that helped take this coin public, and that's not even the right. I'm using like what's the opposite of DeFi? I'm using TradFi language.
TradFi,
yeah. To talk about this, but the point is, I'm going through the Discord. And I had an interesting thought, which is like, you know, there's all this conversation about young men, you know, how do we de-radicalize young men? I think they need to be more boys chats, because I'm like looking at this Discord and it's say what you will, all right? They're kind of doing this weird evil rug pull. It looked fun. They're like firing off takes. They're doing crazy stuff. They're in on this thing, and I'm like, I am not in one of these because I have 6 friends and we text each other. And like, that's where I get that from. And I compulsively text that group chat, and we don't do rug pulls. We just talk about the dumbest possible stuff. But you know, that's a real dopamine center for me. The second thing is all of these Discord folk in here have really insane names, which I don't want to dox them, you know, whatever. They are all kind of insane. The one name that I recognized, which surely I'm not saying this person is actually in there, but just speaks to their cultural capital. The one person whose name I recognized was Jared McCain. There was it literally is like Dick Sandwich 44, like crypto to the moon Portnoy, and then no underscore anything Jared McCain. he's in there with the boys.
I really thought you were going to say Jonte Porter.
That if they were really on some shit, that's what they would have done. And so that brings us to basketball. We can't.
I want to transition out of that one more cleanly.
I did think the transition was going to be. Do you guys remember Haley's? First off, I cannot believe. I didn't realize until reading your article, Patrick, that she spells her name like that.
It's not okay.
It's fucking insane. But do you remember her endorsement of Trae Young?
No.
Yes.
Yes. Trae got, at the start of the season, I think she literally did this for the brand synergy of they're the Hawks. And so she's wearing a Hawk jersey and formally invites Trae Young to be the first NBA guest on Talk Tua, and then does like this horrible dance. but I was thinking that the Hawks were going to be the transition. So respect to Jared McCain.
Yeah, no, it was McCain. But so I want to talk about the Brooklyn Nets, because we got to go from fully online to all too painfully real. How are we feeling about the Brooklyn Nets, your team?
The Brooklyn Nets, yes. So you say online to too real, but one of my many deep abiding beliefs about the Brooklyn Nets is that they are entirely an online fiction. You go to the Barclays Center, you see something completely different. It's not entirely real. Everyone there is a state actor or someone with a pending asylum claim who has just been afforded a momentary reprieve from the cold streets of New York City. Usually they're from Eastern Europe or something, and they just get to watch, Cam Thomas jack up 45 shots a game. Nets world right now is... God, there's a lot to get into, but the major development, obviously we're recording this after the concerted week-long pressure campaign of drones over New Jersey by the Golden State Warriors front office finally forced Sean Marks to trade Dennis Schroeder over. So we know what was going on with that.
3 second-round picks, and we won't blow up New Jersey.
Exactly. Creating compromise on Clara Wu Tsai and the Tsai family operations.
It used to be, sorry to cut you off, it used to be like, oh, this is a sweetheart Dirk Nowitzki deal. Like, he's getting ownership stake in the back end. And it's like, now it's like the drones won't release photos of Joe Tsai.
Yes, exactly. The Alibaba slave factories can continue to run unbothered. It's just...
I mean, I'm not the only one who is going to point out that it's the Silicon Valley ass Golden State Warriors perhaps cutting a sweetheart deal with Palantir to be like, we're going to do some sort of undercover DoD advertising. Like, we'll never explain what the drones are, but then this is happening at a moment of like ascendant Gundo style second American Silicon Valley doing military tech production. And we will get the best German point guard in the NBA.
Yeah, there's what is American technological innovation without a little bit of help from the Germans?
Yeah.
But no, so Nets world right now is, I mean, my answer would have been different a week ago, but basically we're in a new season now. We have finally traded Schroeder, and it was clearly a trade to make them worse, right? There was no justification. There was no being precious about him and holding on for a first round pick. So the battle lines have been drawn after kind of a weird start to the season where they won too many games. Like, the Nets are tanking, or at least they're trying to, if Jordi Fernandez lets them. Mm-hmm. But the front office is committed to kind of cashing in on owning their first round picks, which kind of puts to bed the plot line that has driven Nets fans on the internet schizophrenic for the first half of the year, which is knowing that they're tanking, but the Nets not losing enough games, and so feeling the need to hate watch every second of every Nets game, just tweeting from the cuck chair, being like, bring in Ben Simmons right now or I will kill you at Jordi Fernandez, and because Jordi's Catalonian, getting really into Spanish separatist politics, like becoming royalist. There's been all this weird shit happening on Nets Twitter, but God willing, it goes to bed now that they're going to start to sell off pieces.
Yeah, I really liked, I liked people sort of talking about the Zaire Williams basketball ick clip where he just lists Dennis Schroeder's traits. But I do draw the line at Galician separatism and this idea that Catalonia is not real. I don't think that's cool, but everyone has their own personal preferences.
Nothing creates a complete jumping the shark moment than a stealing yourself for a 4-year tank reboot. That's how you start being what's good with Catalonia.
Yeah, well, people have lost their minds, but I think also I don't know, I kind of had a tongue-in-cheek joke about this today, but I do think something that's interesting about the Nets, or y'all had Trill on a few weeks ago to talk about the process Sixers, but you do learn a lot about the nature of fandom entering a tank. And I think what has made Nets fans different for a while has been being so shitty for so long without the opportunity of salvation, right? Like, it's just been being bad for their own sake because we've never had our own picks. But, one team wins every year, and probably 5 teams consider their season a success. But, like, most fans of most teams are gonna be disappointed unless they make their own meaning out of things. And so watching the Nets fan base, what exists of it, right? There's really, the jokes are true. Like, there's not that many people who like the Brooklyn Nets. They probably should move. Like, it's like not good. But
they should move to like a Baltic. They should be like the first, fully deep state backed team. That it's like the Bulgarian Nets.
I have long maintained that their only path to like contention is gonna be Peter Thiel buying the team.
Oh.
And just becoming the like dark MAGA. Like, I guess Elon could do it too, but that would just like somehow be more intolerable.
Yeah.
But like the dark, like move them to the practice facility in the Gundo and just like become this like entirely satanic organization.
Fuck, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
we're going post-geographical with it.
Yeah, exactly. Just this like kind of the first like cloud-based team, like the Urban Nets.
What's moving New York points right isn't anything that it's like Jordi Alonso and like Giannis getting a 600 billion BTC deal.
Yes.
They really are like a post-reality, not like post-consensus reality, but like post-reality basketball team. Like, I've been in Brooklyn for games, and like you walk by Barclays and you see people in jerseys for like a quarter of a block, and then you're just in Park Slope, and it's like there's not a basketball game happening 100 feet away. Like, it's really, really weird. And the energy is great for Liberty games too. It's like totally different.
Yeah, I mean, so like the Barclays Center is this portal into just like another world, and it's not a better world or a worse world necessarily. It's just a different one. And the Nets cannot kind of come to terms with that, right? So like every 3 or so years since they moved to Brooklyn has been this like new identity crisis about like, how do we become a real person team, right? Like, how do we turn this block in Brooklyn into something that like is actually compatible with the rest of the world around it? And they haven't found an answer yet. Maybe tanking looks like that, but probably not, because building a homegrown team is nice and all, but you need at least this kind of like remnant faction of sickos to build connections with them. And right now the fan base is mostly just like mercenary tourists and people who are on like a third date.
You know who could like, and this is sort of going in the opposite of the Teal direction. You know who could save them is Dylan Harper, because he would unite the like New Jersey and Brooklynite factions, because he's a Rutgers guy and he's like from New Jersey, and I kind of have a forbidden take that he might be better than Flag.
He's
so good.
Been radicalized on that. I mean, he has been my guy. I want him desperately. The problem is they tried to fuse New Jersey and Brooklyn, and that was originally the Kyrie angle. And then that happened and things went south, and
then they almost won the 2021 title and nothing bad ever happened again.
And then nothing ever happened. Yeah. And
it really is that nothing ever happened again in either way.
Well, the Brooklyn Nets are the nothing ever happens team. Like, they are I'm all in. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, can you imagine if Kiyomi McMiller, who just had an absolute nasty, like the coolest fucking crossover ever. I don't even know if you call it a crossover.
Yeah,
I'm using
beyond Cartesian geometry
for a DeFi move.
Yeah.
But she's a current Rutgers point guard. If we just go Liberty, Rutgers, fucking that could be something. One of my favorite sort of bizarro New York, like Shadow Realm things about Barclays Center is that there's a now defunct kind of like fratty oasis barbecue place called Pig Beach, which was in Gowanus. And I actually like Pig Beach, but that's a different conversation, but it was closed to create like giant housing in Gowanus. So you can no longer get Pig Beach anywhere in New York except like Carousel C of the Barclays Center. You can like weirdly get like a Pig Beach branded sandwich.
I love the idea that it was like a 3-team trade between like the Brooklyn Nets housing in New York City and Big Beach is like.
Yeah, that's really funny. I did want to ask you, so because we're getting at this thing, and it's something one of the theories we put forth on the Sixers episode was with Trill was that the process had this sort of like Jokerifying Philly Twitter experience. What was your Jokerifying experience? And like, how Joker-fied are you guys right now? Because you're right, you guys are out of complete nihilism land, but you're in possibly an even more dangerous place where you have hope.
Yes.
So set the scene for me.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'll just go from Brooklyn on, right? Because pre-Brooklyn Nets, they move in 2013. Pre-Brooklyn, like, Jersey fans are who they are.
Right.
No one really leaves the Nets because they moved to Brooklyn. If you're a New Jersey guy, you just kind of make it work. You might not go to games anymore, but for all intents and purposes, they are just consolidated into what is to be built what is to be built as the Brooklyn Nets fan base. I'd say the first Jokerifying moment is kind of this ongoing thing that we're actually seeing really come home now, which is just being in the cuck chair for the Boston Celtics legacy and I mean dynasty that's being built using the Nets draft picks from probably the worst trade, hopefully only the worst trade so far. My hope is that the McCall Bridges trade becomes somehow worse for the Knicks, but the as of yet worst trade in NBA history where I mean, now the Kevin Garnett thing is literally the washed meme, and they traded multiple Celtics championships for a chance at him. But then I think Nets fandom more or less becomes this like really passive exercise for a lot of people. They are mediocre. They have like 3 good games against the Heatles. They more or less fall apart and then just become absolutely dog shit with no picks, no nothing. And the people crazy enough to hang along get this weird treat in 2018 and really 2019 where because the Nets have nothing to sell anyone, they rebuild their identity about being scrappy and gritty and doing things the quote-unquote Brooklyn way, which is like a hilarious concept given just who the Nets are as an organization. And then obviously you have the feel-good dancing 2019 Nets, all the memes of, Playboi Carti playing as like Jared Dudley for some reason is like doing a proto-gritty or whatever. And that's all a long way of saying that the Jokerifying moment for Nets fans just has to be when out of nowhere everything everyone on the highest supply of copium said actually came true. This disaffected star and his disaffected star best friend came to the Nets literally just because they were in New York and weren't the Knicks. Like, it was proof of concept for everything the Nets were trying to do. Everything goes perfectly, and then everything falls apart so, like, utterly catastrophically that it more or less broke everyone's brain. Because, like, the problem, I think, for all Nets fans is the knowledge that we had our shot, and that is the best shot we will ever have. And the only thing we could ever dream for is something that's like 85% of that. And we know what happened when we had 100%. It's so bad.
Yeah, I forget that James Harden was on the Nets for so long because I think of it as like primarily a KD and Kyrie phenomenon, and that Harden was there and got his ass traded for Ben Simmons, who is currently averaging 6 shots per 36, which is like among the lowest of like real NBA players. Like, that guy just not a basketball player. It's so sad.
And so that is kind of like the Harden thing too, because Harden was there and he was also amazing.
Right.
Like,
Incredible.
he was like randomly MVP level, and the 3 guys never really played together, but like no matter what iteration was on the court, they were just amazing. Like, there would be these weird like Kyrie, Harden, and the journeyman games, and they would just give you like an instant classic in the West Coast trip or whatever. But I think to understand the current Nets fan base now, it's those years where even like as you're flirting with success, you still have this just like permanent civil war. And it is, for lack of a better word, like the statists or like the organizational line people and then the rebels. And for a while, that was literally front office versus real hoopers. But like it has taken a lot of different forms. But just like every so often, the Nets fan base is torn apart. It starts with, do you trade for James Harden or not? Right? Do you kind of hollow out your role players and Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, and trade for James Harden? The answer is obviously yes. That happens. And then everything that happens from then is just kind of like edging complete failure. It's just like KD gets hurt every year, or like Kyrie chooses to sit out, or James Harden comes back fat, and then Kyrie gets the vaccine, and just like or doesn't get the vaccine.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, no. Any way you slice it, there is just this like simmering civil war between like who is at fault for the fact that shit is not going right, and then obviously the Nets fall apart. And the story of the last 2-3 years has been these old battle lines transposed onto the most meaningless shit because the stakes matter a lot when it's like, should Kyrie be allowed to play just away games or no games at all? And they matter a lot less when it's like, is the 7th coach in his career unfairly blackballing Cam Thomas, right? Like these like completely inconsequential conversations.
I think Cam Thomas is like the perfect figure for this post crumbling like KD, like Nets era, because he's just totally like this farcical figure who people who don't actually watch him think is like, oh, this is like Kobe reincarnated. And it's just like I think he's going to be such an effective tanking player for them the rest of the season.
Oh,
like,
he's going to be incredible.
He has like the aesthetic markers of someone who was like great in 2004, except like he secretly, I mean, whatever, he scores a lot. I think he secretly kind of sucks.
Yeah,
like
he's horrible.
Not good. Yeah. And
that's what everyone spends all their time arguing. I mean, Cam is kind of like the last bastion of the real hoopers on the Brooklyn Nets, right? Like I always joke that like the Nets big three were more or less, in geopolitical terms, like they are Al-Qaeda. And then like
I'm always saying that.
And then, you know, they are even further radicalized in these dark years that are more or less the black box sites, and you create the ISIS analog, who is Cam Thomas, who is just this like completely radical, like totally unmoored, nothing but real hoops guy, but all of his actual like, fundamentals have fallen by the wayside. It's like he can't pass or do anything other than jack up shots, but like Ball Don't Stop sees it, and it's just like he is what I want in a player.
That is really funny. An ISIS Brooklyn Net. I mean, dude, now they're doing the city edition, dude. Just the ISIS Brooklyn. That would actually go hard.
That would actually go crazy.
Brooklyn in Arabic.
It's like the first Nets jerseys a real person in Brooklyn ever wears.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, literally. God, okay, that's really funny. I'm trying to think of like which Nets coach is like the guy in Abu Ghraib.
It's like, well, they randomly, this is deep lore, is in their first Big Three team, Ime Udoka was an assistant coach.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
No, I didn't even
And
know
many
that.
forget that when they fired Steve Nash, they tried to bring the freak in. And Adam Silver more or less stepped in and was just like, your vibes are so bad right now. Like, you're not allowed to do that.
Right.
Like,
right.
Yeah. Because
I totally forgot Steve Nash was even the Nets coach.
Yes.
Like, that's how much crazy shit has happened.
He was the coach that Kyrie and KD were on Instagram Live about, saying, we don't need a coach. And we functionally don't have a coach. And Steve Nash was just kind of there. But yeah, they tried to bring... And so Udoka really would be like the perfect Abu Ghraib black site administrator. But we were robbed of that.
I wanted to move over to talk a little bit. Christmas is coming, and I want to talk a little bit about the NBA marketing itself and a conversation about advertising and stuff. There are two things I want to do to set this up. One is a belief I have that feels fairly like true is that over the last 25 years, something you have seen is a tremendous amount of brain drain in the advertising industry. If you look at what a reasonable, first of all, they pay less. It's just whatever. But also, if you were a reasonably creative, ambitious 22-year-old in 2002 or whatever, there's a chance that you're working on a Super Bowl ad or like a fun Doritos thing or whatever. You are now doing Excel sheet like IP address management for Ogilvy to place paid search ads. Like it has become an incredibly laborious job. It's become an incredibly boring job. And I'm not saying there's no fucking smart people in advertising, but on the whole, there's a serious brain drain.
It's like Don Draper's the real Hooper who's been like calculator ratted into.
Exactly. Well, right, and there's a helpful to that point. And there is this meta conversation about does like any of this fucking matter if the commercial is good or bad, and probably not. The second thing I want to say is this weird phenomenon I picked up the other night watching some Kings basketball about De'Aaron Fox, the advertising for De'Aaron Fox's new shoe. Patrick, did you happen to see this?
I've watched all the commercials. I've like watched as Kings fans have been like posting their Under Armour receipts, being like, "We're supporting our boy," and like, I think the way they're marketing the shoe is actually pretty interesting.
Me too. And the thing that I saw is, you know how like when YouTube TV will like glitch and basically serve you two ads back to back, the same two ads again and again. Yeah. I got one De'Aaron Fox ad that was him. Clearly a campaign that was written with a concept of like, I'm fast in shoes, I'm fast in whatever. And I think it's a good ad. It's a fun concept.
It feels such a throwback too.
Yes, completely throwback. And then the next one is the same De'Aaron Fox company, whatever, but him being like, this is the story behind my shoes. There's a gold fox tip. There's a silver fox tip. And like almost parroting the sort of like YouTube sneaker reviewer, maybe like the player podcast model of SpawnCon of like, you should buy this shoe because you're friends with De'Aaron Fox, and De'Aaron Fox wants you to buy these shoes or whatever. And he was clearly a big part of the creative direction of making these fucking shoes. And that represents the two ways of thinking about advertising around sports as I see it. And it was a funny decision by their team to just do both of them. Just be like, whoever sees this one will do this one. Whoever sees this will do this one. But before I go into talking about the Christmas stuff, what were you said you thought it was interesting. What was interesting about the ads?
Like it's funny, like from the very early conversation of like you could post your way into a New Yorker job, like I was a big Free Darko guy, and Bethlehem Scholes, the founder, like wrote his way into a Widening Kennedy job doing like Nike ads. And I remember like a lot of the early Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook ads were like him essentially doing, his job was like myth making via like doing these kind of funny comedic sketch ads to sort of like sell you the sort of player Durant was and why that was interesting. And the like Fox Fast and Different Shoes thing felt like something that would have happened in 2011. And I saw that and I was like, this makes me want to buy the shoes just like to sort of rebel against my own obsolescence as like a nostalgic moment. The thing that no one talks about is that he steps out of the shoes all the time. They do appear to be good for hooping, but like, oh my God. Like there was this one highlight where he stepped out of his shoe, put it back on and scored a layup. And like,
oh yeah, everyone
focused on the layup and not the stepping out of his shoe part. So NBA Deep State needs to address this.
That's a good point about that I'm reminded of the greatest basketball video game in my life, which was NBA 06, which had an ability where this is actually prescient and not just a nostalgia trip, but that each player had a unique ability. Like if you were good enough, you were ascribed a unique ability, like a playmaker. And so if you were Steve Nash at the time, and your unique ability was playmaking, you could like do this crazy behind the back pass. That feels akin to this era you're talking about of highlighting what is uniquely idiosyncratic about each individual player. Whereas now what we are highlighting is how sort of amoebic and malleable every player, like how
that's perfect. Yeah.
How like swag neutral is actually like the best thing you can be. Whereas it used to be, how kind of like idiosyncratic and bizarre your game is. I
mean, you do see like, I don't know, not to go back. I just feel like there was another big week for ratings chat for like no obvious reason, but it's just been the story of the year. And something you always see is people talking about like, oh, players, I don't know. Everyone always says it's like the same thing with the election, right? Like it's just like the thing I wanted is actually what's missing.
Right.
But people do talk a lot about like lack of player personalities and feuds and this and that. But I think it could just as easily be transposed into like lack of differentiating skills and aesthetics, right? Like the modern star now is far more frictionless and jack of all trades than, I don't know, there's something fun about like, oh, De'Aaron Fox, what's the pitch? He's fast, right? And it's just like, I want to watch the fast guy.
Totally.
Yeah, and like we can do ratings chat whenever, but like the thing that's always struck me as sort of disingenuous about that, and particularly like relevant to what you just said, is like people who make aesthetic arguments never really explain why, like the therefore of like, oh, everyone shoots too many threes. They never really say why that's bad, or like teams all play the same way, which like is not true. They never really like they never take the like argument for making an aesthetic one and then like doing the therefore like here's the political economic argument, and like that has always bugged me about ratings chat.
Well, a funny, and this is like, I might be getting too big brain with all of this, but one of the funny things about when you think about like gambling related sports talk radio, which is extremely popular now, obviously. But even before, like Simmons is a great example, but all of these people do it where they're like viewing the entire thing through this premise of gambling, which if you think for 1 second and you're like, I actually don't give a shit if Simmons makes any money on his bets or not. Like, why am I listening to this, right? It's this thing where as a discourse, as a type of discourse, it doesn't matter, but it actually creates fun conversations. It is, despite its logical failures, fun to talk about. The ratings conversation is the same thing where, like, I don't care if the NBA is making money, but a kind of like fun hypothetical conversation about my aesthetic or subconscious or post-truth issues I have with the NBA, that's actually fun to talk about and kind of fun to listen to. So and why there's almost in this universe where we are building, this is where my like eyes roll back in my head, is like, is that an example of the Haley Welch, like if the goal is your own stardom at the and like your own centrality to the discourse, it almost like it doesn't matter if what you're talking about has any logical grounding as long as it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, like the sort of the weightlessness of it, which is like the thing that's like hard to make it general, if that's also what makes it fun at the same time. And I think basically like that's true and maybe even good as long as like as long as everyone involved is like aware that like that's the level it's happening on. Like there's an intellectual honesty to it that I vibe with.
Yeah, I think there's also some chat to be had. Like I was thinking something similar about your point earlier, Harry, about like the small internet and the big internet, right? Like it reminds me a lot of like, I don't know, you look at like Succession rating numbers versus like Yellowstone, whatever, and you're like, the things I think are hugely important are a fraction of the world. And I think about that with respect to the ratings conversation, because it's like obviously people come to it from a bad faith, like Sherwood Strauss, like there aren't enough like Nazi GMs, and so like no one wants to watch basketball anymore. But people who come to it from a place of inexplicable anxiety and from a place of like care, I see the same tendencies that I do. It was the same way that like people freaked the fuck out over the course of like the week, not to get into this, but with like the CEO guy, the Italian kid. And there was this rush to be like, I know why he did it. He's my hero. And then the second that it doesn't really meet your priors, everyone pivots to, oh, of course, because y'all don't understand. The median voter, the person who isn't online all the time, they're actually idiosyncratic, and I understand them too. But like these tendencies, these modes of like talking about what other people do, all seem to proceed from this like really crippling anxiety that I think a lot of people who spend a lot of time on the small internet share, which is like, do I understand the people around me at all? Right? Like, and I think for far too long, people have thought that like by virtue of being, the fetishized version of online, they have a jump on everyone. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm
this is the
ahead
bleeding
of culture.
edge.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. And then you realize the bleeding edge is actually the girl who spits on that thing, right? And it's like there's this
And like drone manufacturers in El Segundo.
yes. There's this like vertiginous moment of like, I am not on the bleeding edge whatsoever. I'm in my little farm that makes me happy, but everyone around me is on their own. And so, yeah, that is what I see often in the ratings chat, is less this worry about the future of the NBA and more like, why is it that I can't feel as like monoculturally attached as I used to? Like, what is it about other people that isn't drawing them to the game? And what does it say about me that I can't put my finger on it?
Mm. Yeah, I like, just structurally speaking, as sort of an example of basically what you were saying, the thing that really bugs me about the meta conversation about ratings is that like there's never a like consideration of what people are doing instead or like with their time. And like the obvious takeaway would just be like, it's the phones, but like that's not a very satisfying conclusion, right? Even if it's like the one I think is right. And it's like it's this need to sort of conform reality to your own experience, even when it doesn't correspond. That's like kind of maddening, I think.
Well, one thing we can all agree is tanking the ratings are these fucking Christmas commercials.
Yes.
I made a stink. I was texting Patrick annoyed about the Christmas commercials.
This and Peyton Palantir Pritchard are like the two things that I've heard the most from you about in the past 72 hours.
I'm telling you, I tweeted about this, but like, it's not true. I'm like living in my own false reality. But when I saw that real GM thing that the most searched page in like 25 of the 50 states is the Boston Celtics page.
Oh my God.
I was like, I'm gonna kill. So I'm like gonna United Health shoot or somebody. But
there's like 7 states or 5 or 6 states with like NBA teams where the Celtics are the most looked up. They're all in the South.
It's disgusting. And Peyton Pritchard, I mean, no better example. Sorry, this is a side thing. No better example than the Peyton Pritchard 6th Man of the Year, like manufactured consent political project is like, hey, do you guys remember Marcus Smart? Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Smart. Oh God, you don't really hear too much about him anymore.
Not so much these days. Yeah,
because now that he's on a different team, huh?
That's the problem, is you can't. Kind of like with Luigi and them just picking a new CEO. There are systems and there are people, and the Boston media mafia is not something that can just be. You can't just kill Simmons and it falls to its
knees. No, it's true.
knees.
There'll just be another. There's KOC is just right there, being like he's got to shoot more. Yeah, no, it's fucking. Yeah.
Okay, Harry, why do you think they made the guys all fucked up and animated looking for the commercial? That is the thing that makes, like, if you're just going to recreate the iconic Scherzy 5 hoops Jingle Bells thing, cool, perfect. Why do they need to look all like AI ass? I don't get it.
It's such a good question, and I almost am feeling like I'm being rage baited into this because there's this other, This commercial was not made with AI. And it's funny, I saw a Twitter reply of somebody being like, I like this so long as it's not made with AI. And I am sort of like, that's missing the point. Like, it's still made on a computer. It just is made with like a different type of really powerful technology, not an AI technology, like not one that's like crawling for. And yes, I mean, yes, I want to be careful of like not like shitting on the artistic work of all of this because, the stop motion animation, there is a certain humanist component to the individual pieces, the whatever. And the decision to make them like fucked up little avatars felt like this just exact larger conversation of like, moving away from the game and moving toward fucked up little avatar versions of the game. Like, it's like they were like if a bunch of stat muse fucking guys were playing each other.
Yes.
It was like, a cluster of Tyrese Maxey's per 36 just dunked on the game. The whole thing was this if you took a kind of conspiratorial, where is the league? What are their kind of refinement culturing my boy, guy, and like made a commercial to set him off, which is I guess me. That this would have been the output. I hated that we're being nostalgic for a commercial that came out 10 years ago. Or like whatever, 15 years ago. It's just so recent. And 10 years ago, yeah. I hate that it's this whatever thing. I hate that the storyline doesn't even make sense. Everything about it made me sad. And they got Tyrese Maxey wrong. You know, it doesn't look anything
He does
like
not
that.
look like that.
No.
On top of that, what were your guys? Were you guys as mad about this, or do you have any reactions?
I'll let you go first, Patrick. I have
Not super. I mean, I generally have this like blanket policy that that talking about advertising in almost any context is sort of a loser's game, because like even if you're saying it's bad, like this is the example of the like, oh, Mr. Clean is like showing, you know, full uncut dick in a new Super Bowl commercial. How crazy is that? The result is this, just that you're talking about Mr. Clean.
Right.
Like there's no way to talk about this without like actually promoting the thing. And so I generally have a not my problem take towards like most ads. I mean, I also like the thing is I'm also not the target audience for this. The thing that is interesting is like, what are they trying to go for with this ad? And I could not figure that out. So that was my main takeaway is like, what is he cooking? Bro on to nothing.
what was he cooking in his mind? I mean, I love it as a slap in the face to, you know, what we talked about last week, Ball Don't Stop. Like, I do love the idea that he got what he wanted, the return to the Christmas commercial, and it's just dog shit. Like, it's just this, like, I do think it was like a not-so-coded message to him alone saying there's no going back. But aside from that, no, it makes no sense. It does, like you said, Harry, just feel like a bunch of, like, Muse accounts. It's Mitch Muse, right? Like,
yeah. I did a little research into some of the to the creative agency behind this stuff, because I go, maybe it is like, so my mom worked in advertising for like 20 years, so I grew up like sort of scrutinizing ads. So, and I do always, I agree definitely that there's like at a certain point the kind of like over intellectualizing ads is silly, because like the main thing that they are beholden to is like flashing colors and like hot people. That's what they're trying to do.
I feel like I sounded like Adbusters magazine making that point.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I do think there's that, you know, people do try to make like really sweeping claims, and it can end up being I think the main, so now this is a whole whatever. The main way people I think relate to ads as a cultural signifier is the way people basically whether or not they are engaging in postmodernism or not. Like, ads are either like tell you they're an ad or don't tell you they're an ad, and that you can infer something about what they're going for based on if they tell you they're an ad or not. What I mean by like a very early set of postmodern ads were like, or not very early, but that you guys will remember. There's those Mountain Dew ads or the Old Spice ads that are like, a dolphin's coming out of a guy's face and the girl is exploding, and look at how crazy this ad is. Like, that's an ad that is telling you it's an ad, whereas you know, a car ad is not telling you it's an ad, it's just being a car ad. Anyway, I don't know how much you can infer about that, because it just like keeps happening every 2 years. It's not like we're moving in and out of postmodernism. It's just like whichever creative director is like like fucking with the vision at that moment.
Yeah.
The only I was looking at Translation Studio, which by all accounts, from what I saw, did some other ads that I liked. So again, I'm not trying to like harp too much on the specifics. My bigger enemy, such that I have one, is the NBA's like decision to market itself. You know, it's always the client's fault. Like, if something got fucked up. So don't, unless you're one of my clients, then I don't feel that way actually. But the Translation Studio's done other ads. They did the NBA Lane ad, which I remember briefly, where it's like, oh, they're driving the bus down NBA Lane. Whatever.
Oh yeah. And
the main nugget of the NBA Lane ad was this amount of Easter eggs that were in there. Like, oh, it's Jalen Green Pastor or whatever the fuck. I don't know. You know.
Sure.
They were doing, probably wasn't that, but
it's like the Bleacher Report playoff bus core. Like, it's
yes,
just like,
yes,
yeah.
exactly. But just this decision to like look inward and via commercials create lore or force lore upon us. Like, look how cool the old commercial is almost maybe speaks to a lore deficit we are feeling, like that we needed to say the quiet part out loud in this advertising because we couldn't just like let the thing exist. And the last thing I'll say on this is if you compare it to the 2014-2015 era, which was the Scherzy era, which was no doubt a sartorial misstep. Like, those things were ugly.
Pajama ass.
If you look at the types of misses the NBA was doing, I'm way more into that miss than I am a, like, backwards-looking animated ad. Like, because at least I was, like, fucked up and gaudy and weird. Whereas this was just predictable, basically.
Did you guys see Gladiator 2?
I haven't yet, but I've
I just watched Gladiator 1 for the first time last week in preparation, and it made me maybe not want to go see Gladiator 2.
Yeah, I mean, do with it what you will, but Gladiator 2 starts, like, the first, 5 minutes, it has, a traditional credit sequence at the start, which I actually, whatever, not so much anymore, fun.
Yep.
But it is kind of in the foreground, and in the background is just, inexplicably, CGI generated, meant to look like watercoloring, kind of flat, dreamlike flashes of major events from the first Gladiator, right? It's here's his hand running through wheat, and here is, we're killing Joaquin Phoenix, and are you not entertained? And I just remember seeing it and being like, what the fuck? Why this? And why have so little faith in anyone who is paying to see Gladiator 2 that they don't remember the fucking movie? And that is exactly what this mode of advertising feels like.
Totally.
It's it is shittier for no reason, and also it is so desperate to generate lore and remind you of that lore that it ends up making you feel kind of silly.
Yeah, the premise of so much, I hate to use this word, content, and I think the thing that unites those two is hey, you're fucking stupid, viewer. Here, you can't make any of these connections for yourself. You have no critical thinking. Here's some dumb bullshit for you.
Right. You know what commercial ruled is the Andersons got tickets?
Oh, that's
great. A good commercial, dude. That's a great American commercial.
We're losing recipes, yeah. Now we just have the Lopez twins doing insurance ads. And
Yeah.
Bleak. Giannis doing Hulu spots. Well, the real answer to the CGI is they couldn't get any of the guys because everyone's doing a gambling ad. You actually can't find Kevin Durant anymore.
Well, and even maybe I am just mad about maybe it is just execution. Maybe I'm overthinking all of this and it's just execution because the lore-filled kind of postmodern. Well, I guess maybe these are different, but the casino NBA Cup ad from last year was awesome.
Yeah, I think
maybe
it's
I'm
cool.
just that had real guys in it, and that's why I like it. I don't know.
Yeah, my first thought upon seeing the casino ad this year, and I hate that this was my instinct, it was when they show Steph Curry in a Waiters jersey or whatever, it's oh, people are gonna post this JPEG after he shoots 4 for 19 in a playoff game, and I really hate that was my first instinct. So I think I need to find a way to become normal.
I saw a Josh Hart tweet today that was this guy wants to be a GIF. This guy wants to be a reaction GIF so bad.
Yeah. So bro clip farming at 32. Get a grip.
Oh man. Okay. Do you guys have time for one more segment, or do we have to go? What's our timing?
We can do rapid fire. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do rapid fire.
Talk to me, Hawk. You've written about Young Thug.
Yes.
I am a member of my Spotify Wrapped every year has Young Thug, Gunna, Future, and then one really really sad guy singing. It's either or sad person singing. It's sometimes it's Big Thief. This year is MJ Lenderman. It's gonna be one of those people in that slot. Mm-hmm. There's obviously a million things to say about Thug. I think you wrote a great piece about the 10-year anniversary of Rich Gang and which is also kind of takes on a tragic moment as Rich Homie Quan died, which is all sad, and we're firmly out of this era. I think the question I have for you is what is unique, what that era of music took me back to was how the experience of listening to Thug is impenetrable at first. You're like, what the fuck am I listening to? You're like, I don't like it. Or at least my experience was I was like, this is like, what is this? You know? And then at a certain point you sit with it long enough and something clicks and you're like, holy shit, I'm like inside of Future's brain and like
this guy has solved language.
Yeah, yes. Right. And I noticed myself on the outside of that with some of the contemporary like rappers of our time, or the contemporary kind of people who I imagine occupying that cultural spot, like Yeet or who's Net Spend, like some of these sort of post language rappers, and I kind of go of two ways. I go Old Man Yelling at Cloud. I'm like, well, these guys actually suck, and Thug was better. And then I go, well, that's what that's the old head in me talking. So my question, I'm not super duper plugged into music. That's really just my shit ends at like that era. I graduated college and I was like, I'm done with new rap. Is it worse, better? Do you think about it along that line? And then like, who are those people that you think are creating, because surely there are people who are just doing like shitty, impenetrable, bad noise music, but then there's also surely some thugs out there. Who are some people speaking to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think like to the first point, like I had a pretty similar experience with Young Thug, but I think like I'll get to this in a second, but like what made him so different to me and Future to that, on that note was like there was an air of it almost feeling dangerous because like you heard music around people more. Like it's like, are you going to put Young Thug on at the party? Or is like someone going to think you're like a freak or like, I don't know. Like it's like Young Thug's dressing in a dress and it was like not cool or okay necessarily. And so I think like you look at the modes that Young Thug and Future and all these guys come up in, and it is very much so like you still have physical distribution, or at least they've learned lessons from physical distribution. Like their role models are the type of people who are like passing out mixtapes physical, like Gucci Mane, Lil Wayne, yada, yada, yada. And you still kind of have that, but like more importantly, you have like physical like loci of culture, like specifically Atlanta strip clubs.
Right.
And so like there is simultaneously this music sounds so avant-garde because it's scaring the hoes, but it also has to like pass a hoe scaring test. Right? Like,
right.
And so that is
such a good
like,
point.
To me, the lightning in the bottle about him is like it is so avant-garde, so out there, but also there had to be a happy medium that could pass these tests. And so ultimately it drags him like closer to the center and I get a little bit less invested, but like also it pulls people toward him because if a song hits escape velocity, like you cannot escape it. You are there. If you're at the club, you're going to hear it. So I think like now there's definitely a lot of people who make just like, from an aesthetic standpoint, crazier shit than him. Because like I think as a rule, the internet, like stuff proliferates and just like you can go as far out as you want. And the more you're making music in your bedroom, the fewer people can like tell you no about like what to do. I think what's different is how someone becomes a star and like what makes a hit is so like music is still a social experience, but the way that like social acceptance is aggregated is so much more a compilation of individual yeses than a group of people in a physical place like a club or a party or yada 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 collectively agreeing like this shit is not trash, it can stay on, it's actually kind of cool. So now you see someone get popular because everyone is simultaneously listening to their music because it blew up on TikTok or whatever. Is that the same thing as people with like different taste profiles sharing a space and having to come to terms with something that's kind of new? I don't know. And so like that's all a long way of saying I feel like Thug like actually genuinely shifted culture insofar as like rap music sounded different after him and Future kind of had their stampedes. There's definitely people who are going to make music sound different. Obviously, like Playboi Carti now is, unfortunately, Travis Scott too is going to have an influence, even though I think his shit is dreadful and he is the most unimaginative AI guy on earth. But like, do we see a moment again of being out in a space and feeling like, yo, this is kind of this music is genuinely dangerous and like nothing I've ever heard before. I don't know if that ever comes.
Yeah, we need like a if Xavier So Based and Netspend are like the examples of like post-COVID bedroom music, I wonder if like post-COVID bedroom music will sort of have that like physical reality that you're sort of like, I think, wishing for, that I would want too.
I do love thinking of them like people. I think it's crutch to compare basketball and rap, but I do love the idea of like you guys talking about Shaden Sharp just being like, you put Xavier So Based in New York in the 90s and like it would have the same effect as like the tweet about like the McDonald's Sprite killing a peasant.
Yes. I've been thinking about that, about like if you throwing Santa Baby on like a ship in 1909 and it like does ship 9/11,
you would be
so
burned
horny.
as a witch instantly. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's like tongue rolls out. But yeah, I mean there is a bunch of crazy shit out there, but like you risk sounding just like, because a lot of it is like SoundCloud esoterica,
Yeah.
And there are going to be some people who break. I still think right now, like the dominant rap figures in culture are going to be these kind of like old husks who are really good at incorporating what is on the edge, right? Like I think like your Drakes come back, your Travis Scotts stay there, and things on like the mass culture level are just like constantly degraded and shittier. The closest I come to feeling like so jazzed about something is when I hear Brazilian music now. Anything that comes out of Brazil is like just categorically fucking insane. And so,
DJ Ramon Sucesso. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah, just giving old heads fits about how to DJ. Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, anytime I would play, one of our editors, Billy Hazley, is a huge Brazilian funk head. He wrote this really great story about it. Anytime I would play anything he would post in our music Slack without headphones in, my girlfriend would come in from the front room and be like, "You gotta not do that. You gotta use headphones, man. This sounds like a car exploding back here."
Yes, yeah, it's like an Amber Alert.
That is funny. The scaring the hose continuum. It makes me think of in TV there. What I was listening to Chris Ryan and Andy Greenwald on the Watch podcast, and they had an interesting point of, this is probably a year ago or so, but just how that one of the nice parts of that early foray from traditional TV to trad TV to DeFi TV.
This metaphor is good.
Yeah, actually.
TV 3.0.
Exactly. Was that there was that even though the networks are giving these like shitty notes that aren't like probably helpful or whatever, that it was still enough people who knew about the bones of TV and how to make stuff that was propulsive and wanted you to get to the next episode. Whereas at a certain point you got to streaming, there was this streaming boom of people who didn't really know how to make TV. Like they didn't know how to make it go from episode to episode, and you'd get these, maybe shows that were good, but just like not if you're really talking real GOAT status, it's what they weren't as good because they weren't as propulsive, they weren't as in touch with shows like a show that I think of that I didn't even finish, but like probably because of this, was a show like Maniac, which was like this kind of interesting avant-garde like show, but it just was like too fucked up to be that it needed a peg, it needed a mobster who goes to therapy or whatever. Like it just needed some kind of like propulsive thing. And I kind of see Thug and Future and all that in that same thing. Last thing I have on this is that era also marks my personal, and again, like not as a cultural setter, so like please, I would love to be put on to other stuff, but like my favorite music journalism. Like that was when some of the I think of like the Noisy Atlanta series as like totally the thing that made me want to move to New York. Was like I was like, first of all, Thomas Morton, fucking come on the pod. Second of all, I was just like, this is incredible what they're doing. And then the Megan Garvey's reviews in Pitchfork on Future, or those early Future and Thug albums, like were just so helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know where are you at? And then last, what is that? Talk about lore building and danger. The Thug GQ feature about him eating hot Cheetos and
the
like
green
gambling
injections.
Yes, and getting injections.
Where he has to like sustain himself on this like adrenochrome mixture.
Yes. So I don't know where who are people, shout some people out if you see good music journalism who are like adding.
Yeah. Well, I mean that too. Just like the same way, Patrick, you were talking about like the earlier internet. Like I do think I'm pretty compelled by the theory of like a millennial subsidy, that like everyone's lives were worse on so many things, and yet there was also this like 10-year boom period where like these new technologies were emerging and no one really knew their worth, and they were funded by VC, and so we more or less got cheap Ubers, and everyone had like a birthright noisy job if they wanted it, where you could just kind of like do cocaine and like enjoy Drake, and that was like enough to live in New York, right, and go to parties for free. And I think some of the void after that is just the money drying up, right? I think the market's overcorrected where, yes, venture capital firms are gutting publications, and also fewer people want to read music writing than there are mouths to feed. Like I think both things are true.
Yeah.
I love it's cliche to say, but I love randomly everything that has happened at Pitchfork since it looks like they were over. Mm-hmm. Counterintuitively, they gave the keys to Mano from Nobels, and I think he's pushed it in a direction that like actually is dangerous and interesting, where like finally there's an editorial point of view, and it's not this amalgamation of just like 9 warring factors. It feels like that site, Megan Garvey's back there writing again. There's a few voices there that I think are just like genuinely amazing. And then I'd be remiss not to shout out, if you are into Brazilian funk, this guy on Twitter, Bill Diffrin. He is just the greatest. He's like the equivalent of like someone who gets radiation poisoning at Chernobyl, but he's just like wading through the internet all day, finding like the craziest shit you'll ever hear. And to the extent that you want to be put onto something that will like genuinely take your breath away, just like go on his blog spot on any given day, and it's just going to be crazy, crazy stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of great people out there. It's just, there are fewer jobs, and like with everything, you kind of like, the building blocks to a career aren't there as much anymore. And so until someone finds out how to make like a Hawk coin for, I love the idea of a predicted market for people's top lists, but until we find a way to monetize caring about this shit, I think it's going to be, Kalshi on like where Brat ranks on the Pitchfork year-end list.
I would like legit sign up for Kalshi and put money on it if I was given the opportunity to bet on what would be on Obama's book list.
Oh yeah, I bet you could do pretty well.
Like or music list or whatever. Like I'm like,
absolutely,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think it was one of our early guests, Getting Nathan, made the point to me a few years ago, and I think this is totally true, that like music journalism is like the one sort of like journalistic paradigm that was like actually successfully pivoted to video. Like I feel like so much of this happens on like, the reason why it makes sense that it's like shit on YouTube and TikTok like blows up so much is like you can listen to the music there.
Yes. Yeah. And also
like
I think for a lot of people, music journalism was like a proving ground to just being a writer in general.
Yeah.
It's for something that is like so popular. I find music very difficult to write about and like very resistant to being categorized. And so I think right now the dominant mode of music writing is still kind of the like essayistic MFA goop on your Grinch style, like, assigning great meaning to things that might have been meant to be enjoyed more in passing. But there's still definitely people out there doing amazing shit.
Yeah.
Well, you are doing amazing shit. Thank you for look at that was fucking good. We're getting better at this.
Wow, I know.
It's
getting smoother
and smoother
the
by the day.
ball's flowing around. Yeah.
I view my second. It's like Al Horford. Like I'm here again to do more evil.
No, thank you for coming
thank
in,
you.
Batting around a lot of topics. This was sort of like your Hawk Klosterman over here.
No, anytime. It's so fun. I love chatting with you guys.
And listen, I got. Just keep friggin' following the pod. Keep texting us nice things. That's always nice. Book us on our podcasts. Go watch Patrick on a yet to be named, but probably announced by the time this episode comes out, cable news network. Subscribe to us on Substack. Do all that. Oh, actually, leave us reviews if you're listening to this. Leave us. I gotta say that at the beginning because it helps with it. It's like the one. It's actually helpful. It's praxis. It helps in some kind of weird way. So, and that's all.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you.
See you guys.